We would love to know about being an IPS officer serving in Maharashtra, especially around that time when Mumbai was more of a crime capital.
I joined in 1981 in Maharashtra, and I worked in various capacities out there, including started my career in Amravati, which is a small city based on Nagpur. I was there in Thane, I was there in Mumbai, I was superintendent of police in Raigad, and also in what was at that time called the Police Training Academy in Nashik. Against the advice of my father, who was himself an IPS officer, he didn't want me to join it, but I joined it because of the excitement, because of the challenge.
I think probably that was in your blood as well.
When it was in my blood, and I thought it's going to be a very exciting life. All these places, I had different experiences. I was Deputy Commissioner of Police in Mumbai, Superintendent of Police in Raigad, Assistant Superintendent of Police in Amravati, and in Nashik, I was, training police officers. So from 1981 onwards, I was there till 1997 with a gap of 2 years when I was studying abroad.
Off camera, you shared a few incidents and I even read about it. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's assassination happened. You had saved a lot of Sikhs as well. So would you like to share
what happened was that I was just starting my career, 1984, October. And when this happened, we got the alert from my supervisor, and he said, this is what has happened. And we started getting reports, of Sikh truck drivers, because Amravati is on highway. And what we found out was that there was a lot of scare among Sikh truck drivers that they would get attacked. So I was patrolling out there, and I came across this truck which was standing on the side. And it really didn't look as to why it was standing out there. Then I stopped and inquired. And a very scared-looking Sikh gentleman came up, who was obviously the driver, and there were other people also. So he looked at me, and I looked at him, and then he took out a pistol. And that pistol was not pointed at me, it's just that he took out a pistol.
As a part of self-defense, probably.
Self-defense, because he didn't know what was happening. He was obviously scared. So I told him, I said, Siddharthi, yadi koi lod nahi hai, tusi pistol rakhe. We continued looking at each other for some time, and finally, he gave it to me. I told him, let's get the other people out of the truck. And the thing was, because it was such a tense environment, that we were getting these reports of people who were agitated, they wanted to do something. So since I had to continue to patrol, I said the best thing to do is to, take them in my custody. So I put them all in my jeep. I took them to the police station, and I thought the safest place would be to put them in the lock. So it was not a knock-up to arrest a person, it's just that nobody would be able to get there, they would be sick. So we put them out there, and I don't remember how many days we kept them, but obviously, we fed them, they were not prisoners, they were not arrested, we were protecting them. So I think that as a police officer, at least I consider it my duty that not only do you go after criminals, but if you can actually protect people from harm. So that is something which I found really, really satisfying, because of the tragic events which happened in Delhi. And till today in my life, I feel very proud of that incident where I could help a few innocent Sikhs who had just got caught up in the terrible events and protect their lives.
Hello, Rahul sir. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Hello, Supreet. How are you doing?
I'm doing perfect and doing even better after, talking to you and gaining a lot of things from your wisdom and your experiences.
I wouldn't call it wisdom. I'll just say whatever little I've done in life, it's really wonderful being here.
If we start from the start, you are a 1981 batch IPS officer. And you have worked in Maharashtra for most of your period, if I'm correct,
till 1994 I was working there.
Till 1997. Till 1997 you worked in Maharashtra Police, covering various areas. So we would love to know about how you wanted to become an IPS officer, the first thing, and what was your your experience being an IPS officer serving in Maharashtra, especially around that time when Mumbai was more of a crime capital, and you played like a huge role in a lot of things. So that inspiration first, how you got inspired and
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm really happy to be here. Yes, I do belong to the IPS, and I joined in 1981 in Maharashtra, and I worked in various capacities out there, including in started my career in Amravati, which is a small city based on Nagpur. I was there in Thane, I was there in Mumbai, I was superintendent of police in Raigad, and also in what was at that time called the Police Training Academy in Nasik.
okay.
So I joined the IPS, I would say, against the advice of my father, who was himself an IPS officer. He didn't want me to join it, but I joined it because of the excitement, because of the challenge. And
I think probably that was in your blood as well.
it was in my blood, and I thought it's going to be a very exciting life. And it certainly was. So in all these places, I had different experiences. I was Deputy Commissioner of Police in Mumbai, Superintendent of Police in Raigad, Assistant Superintendent of Police in Amravati, and in Nasik, I was, training police officers. So from 1981 onwards, I was there till 1997 with a gap of 2 years when I was studying abroad at Harvard University and in Johns Hopkins.
In 1984, you shared off camera, you shared a few incidents, and I even read about it. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's assassination happened. You had saved a lot of Sikhs as well. So, would you like to share?
So, I mean, what happened was that I was just starting my career, 1984, October. And when this happened, we got the alert from my supervisor, and he said, this is what has happened. And we started getting reports, of Sikh truck drivers, because Amravati is on highway. And what we found out was that there was a lot of scare among Sikh truck drivers that they would get attacked. So I was patrolling out there, and I came across this truck which was standing on the side. And it really didn't look as to why it was standing out there. Then I stopped and inquired. And a very scared-looking Sikh gentleman came up, who was obviously the driver, and there were other people also. So he looked at me, and I looked at him, and then he took out a pistol. And that pistol was not pointed at me, it's just that he took out a pistol,
Like as a part of self-defense, probably.
Self-defense, because he didn't know what was happening. He was obviously scared. So I told him, I said, Siddharthi, yadi koi lod nahi hai, tusi pistol rakhe. So we continued looking at each other for some time, and finally, he gave it to me. And I told him, let's get the other people out of the truck. And the thing was, because it was such a tense environment, that we were getting these reports of the people were agitated, they wanted to do something. So since I had to continue to patrol, I said the best thing to do is to, take them in my custody. So I put them all in my jeep. I took them to the police station, and I thought the safest place would be to put them in the lock. So it was not a knock-up to arrest a person, it's just that nobody would be able to get there, they would be safe. So we put them out there, and I don't remember how many days we kept them, but obviously, we fed them, they were not prisoners, they were not arrested, we were protecting them. So I think that as a police officer, at least I consider it my duty that not only do you go after criminals, but if you can actually protect people from harm. So that is something which I found really, really satisfying, because of the tragic events which happened in Delhi. And till today in my life, I feel very proud of that incident where I could help a few innocent Sikhs who had just got caught up in the terrible events and protect their lives.
Being a police officer, you must have seen extreme thought processes, a lot of criminals with a lot of activities they must be doing, which is not called as common in regular day-to-day life. So you have to face a lot of extreme things. How did it change your personality once you came into the force? And what is that incident that changed your thought process or your life?
So I think you're absolutely correct in saying that, the police officers face extreme situations. Now, when you leave your house in the morning, you are dealing from a normal household where life is going on normally, there's no emotional, strain. But suddenly you can come across people somebody has been murdered. And you see the family members, what is going on with them. You have people fighting out there, people who have come with, their bodies badly mutilated. So you are faced with an extreme psychological situation, and the challenge for a police officer is, in one day, how do you go from facing the extreme situations to a completely normal life? Then you come back to a normal household, and then you go out and face the extremes again. And I'll just give you, one example which still is stuck in my mind. And I was in Amravati as a police officer, and I was inspecting a police station. And in the morning, the inspector comes and says, sir, there is a Muslim lady and a gentleman, and they've got some work with you. So I said, get them inside. So he said that he wants to divorce her in front of you. So this was something which was never thought to me in my training. How am I supposed to deal and react with it when a Muslim decides to divorce his wife in front of me? And I was at a loss. So I said, okay, let them come in front of me. So they came out there, and I still remember this woman was looking down, she was trembling, and he said, Talak, Talak, Talak. And that was the end of it. Until today, I cannot forget the face of that woman, feeling bad for her. So you come across situations which are very, very strange and very extreme, in a police officer's life. So you see murders, rapes, killings, thefts, all kinds of cheating. So you see, but the interesting part is that when you meet these criminals, they appear absolutely ordinary. So you meet a murderer, and he's done an extreme act. He has taken the life of another person. But when you talk to him, he's just like another human being, which is a puzzle of human psychology.
कि पुलिस का नाम लेके लोग डरते हैं, and एक बारी thought process आता है कि नहीं यार, पुलिस से ना, people say that you can neither be their friend nor their enemy. So this is a notion. But what I personally felt, and when I met a lot of policemen, the kind of work or job they have to do, the kind of long working hours sometimes they have to do, hats off to them. It's not easy at all. And as you mentioned that you've met so many people with so many extreme thought processes, but they're ordinary people and in extreme situations maybe, or gone through maybe extreme childhood or traumas maybe. Is it one of the major reasons their upbringing or their peer groups, they make them think like criminals, or are they born criminals?
Well, that's a very complex, psychological issue as to, what makes a person a criminal or criminal. Is it poverty? Is it opportunity? Is it company? Is it greed? Is it anger? So it can be a mixture of all these things, But in terms of, a police, one is, as a police officer, the first thing, there are two parts to it. One is, sympathy for what the police have to do. And that is, speaking on their behalf, they have to work long hours, and they are underappreciated by society. They perform an essential function. But at the same time, they are working under a system which is in need of a huge reform. There are, for instance, allegations of corruption against police officers, of not being able to investigate properly, lack of trust which people have with that. These are issues which will have to be solved in a systemic issue. And one of the essential requisites of a good democracy is that a policeman, nobody should be scared of a policeman, but they should be scared of the law. So therefore, nobody should feel scared of a policeman. Oh, well, I don't know what he's going to do. They should feel scared. I am doing something wrong, and there is a police officer present, and therefore I will be taken up, I will be called up because I'm doing something wrong. Not because you think of him as a bandit or an opportunist, or he's, trying to take money out of you. That is an unfortunate reality, and we as in democracy, people in the governance will have to think, how to give the people a more honest, dedicated police force, while at the same time understanding that the police role is a very complex one, that they make great sacrifices. For instance, in Punjab, I mean, how many police officers, lost their lives fighting terrorism in Punjab?
Yes.
So both of it, sympathy for the police officer, understanding for the difficulties which they have, and the necessity for legislative reform to make the police better.
And have you ever thought like how this can be done as well?
There is a very big problem in that, because the police force in any society is at the disposal of the government in power. And that close relationship between the government and the police is something which exists in every country. So it is going to be whether it's the chief minister of a state, whether it is the governor of a state in the USA. The police chiefs are people who have to have the confidence of the elected people. Now, the only question is, to what extent does the system allow the police to take action against those in power? Because they should be able to take action against people who are in power and also people who are not in power. Because if they can take action only against the people who are out of power and only against the ones who are in power, then it is a problem. But this is a very difficult idea to achieve. Again, because I said that the monopoly of the use of violence is vested in the police, in which the politicians find it very difficult to do. And I've seen this in Africa, in USA, in India, everywhere.
You have been the chief of UN peacekeeping mission for a long, long time, I suppose. And you have seen, I think, probably criminals or people doing criminal activities across the world. So have you found any difference between the people, maybe somebody into crime in India versus somebody doing a crime in America or Congo or any of these countries? So do you find any difference?
So actually, I was not a chief of peacekeeping mission. I was a chief of peacekeeping evaluation. So what that required me to do was to evaluate the effectiveness of peacekeeping missions. Now, peacekeeping missions are, complex organizations which have got, sometimes thousands of people, which are comprised of armies from various countries, police from various countries, civilians from various countries, who are deployed in what we call a post-conflict environment, say in Mali, in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So my responsibility as chief of peacekeeping evaluation was to evaluate the effectiveness of these units. So it was not a police job, but I had evaluated the effectiveness of the police force for instance, in Haiti, and there you find the same kinds of issues, lack of political support, of course, extreme poverty. There I came across police who didn't have even the papers from the stationery, and I was reminded of what is there in India. Criminals, the criminals are the same everywhere, except the level of sophistication varies. And the more sophisticated the society, the criminal response is always to increase the level of the sophistication so that they can continue with their criminal activities.
You mentioned a very nice thing that before development, the law and order has to be in place. Yeah. If law and order is in place, development becomes much easier. Yeah. So if you could explain and elaborate a bit.
Certainly, the thing is that if you have a look at, Indian texts and even, the thought of people in other countries, it is the first responsibility of a ruler to provide physical security to his or her subjects, right? So, because after all, we are essentially bodies, and the first thing is the physical integrity of your body and of your property and of your home and of your loved ones. Now, if criminals attack your body, your home, your goods, your family, that is a fundamental weakness and a drawback of a personal power. So I think that the first responsibility of any responsible government is to make sure that the criminals are pursued with the full force of law and the innocent are protected. So without that, you're not going to have investment, because people are not going to come to a place where they think the goods are going to be stolen. They are not going to come to a place where the physical security of their employees is in jeopardy. So law and order, physical security, a sense of ease in people's minds that they can go about their business is the first responsibility of government everywhere. And everything else is built on that. You can have investment, you can have arts, literature. For instance, how can you have, a thriving, somebody says, well, I'm going to have a theater where I'm going to practice experimental dance, for example. Can you have that? When people are unsure of whether they're going to come out alive, if they go in their, artist clothes and they even know it. Correctly speaking, that is the foundation of prosperity, law and order. And whenever that breaks down, then people start having doubts about the government in power, and everything else can unravel after that.
But that's actually very true, because as any normal person, or even if we relocate to any of the countries or any of the cities, the first and foremost thing what people look for is safety कितनी है, मतलब रात को निकल सकते हैं बिना टेंशन के. Like for example, now it is said, probably because of officers like you, कि मुंबई में आप रात को जितने मर्जी बजे चाहे लड़का और लड़की कहीं पे भी जा सकते हैं बिना किसी, without any fear. So again, so law and order comes the first and foremost thing, and then only development can happen, and that's how a lot of these cities have developed as well. During your tenure, there's so many things to ask. I want to delve into it because you have done a lot of things while being an IPS officer as well, and I think you have gone up to the rank of IG police. You've been a part of many reforms, including you've been in narcotics department as well, and you've started, I think, your narcotics department as DCP in Mumbai.
Yeah.
A lot of changes you must have seen from 80s, 90s to today. Can you share like how big the changes are?
So just to go back to your point about Mumbai, actually Mumbai is a very civilized city because, women can go out safely at night. And that's a critical indicator. Do women feel safe anywhere? So that should be something which, every government should be concerned about, how safe do the women feel when going around.
Was it the same in 80s as well?
It is actually, the thing is, Mumbai has always been friendly to, working women, and people stick to themselves, they don't comment about other people, and that's a fantastic thing, right? Yes, I had started the anti-narcotics cell in 1990 in Mumbai, and that time, I was sent for special training out there to America, to Quantico, to the Drug Enforcement Administration. And in 1979, in fact, when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, so there were a lot of drugs which were coming into Mumbai. So that is the time I had to, establish the narcotics cell. And it was a very interesting experience because that time there were large quantities of drugs which were coming inside. Then all I can say is that it is a very, very dangerous and a dirty business in which there is enormous amounts of money, and consequently the possibility of corrupting societies is very high. And looking at, the drug situation in Punjab, for instance, that we as a society have to fight against it with all means at our disposal, right? Because it is not an easy fight. I know from my experience it is not an easy fight. They are very determined people, and they have got all kinds of tricks up their sleeve to, try to deter police officers who go against them.
As you mentioned that everyone has to work collectively against the same. What kind of solution have you found against the same? Is it stopping people from having it, or kind of finding the culprits and putting them in the jails? So what is the right way?
So that's a really fundamental and a correct question, right? And I also specialized in studying. In addition to having field experience, I also studied at Harvard University, and the two aspects of this are demand reduction and supply reduction, right? And so if you have a look at America, they have tried very hard to intercept drugs, and they keep on making drug busts, etc. But now I have come to the conclusion that unless you reduce the demand, the supply is going to keep on coming. So we should focus on what is it in society which makes people go towards drugs. And if there is a reduction in demand, then obviously there's going to be a reduction in supply. But in America, for instance, now there is a fentanyl crisis in the United States.
Yes.
Right. Now, why is there a crisis? Somebody takes it. Right? Why are they taking it? So we have to keep on asking the question, why are they taking it? Are families breaking down? Are structures breaking down? Is it easier for them? Is there social despair? What is it? Because you can keep stopping the flow of drugs endlessly with law enforcement. But the real question is, why is there such a high demand?
You have seen societies in India, in US, in other countries as well.
Yeah.
In India, since a long time, we have been following what people in US have been doing, or following the trends in India have been like almost ditto as what US had been following. How are the societies different, and what wrong Indian society or Indian youth is doing by copying the American system, and how can it be stopped, and where are we losing the track?
Right. So I think there are several questions out there, and I'd like to take them,
Sure.
The first is that, India is a young country. India is an open country. And Indian youth is, adventurous and is also highly receptive to ideas from outside. That has been the characteristic of India forever, that we are receptive to ideas from outside. Now, what are those ideas? The thing is, are they good ideas? Are they bad ideas? Have these ideas worked out there? And are they going to work out there? Are the questions that we need to ask. And one of the things we should like to do is compare what's going on in the United States with what is going on in India. And I just want to give some thoughts. Your viewers may agree or disagree, but let me just put them out in front. So in 2009, there was a very interesting paper written called The Paradox of Declining Female Happiness.
The paradox
of declining
female happiness. Okay.
And what the paper said was that women have progressed in education, in their jobs, in their freedom. They have benefited from technology, in control of their fertility. But strangely, their happiness has gone down. So this is a very famous paper, and I suggest your viewers should Google it and read it. It's called The Paradox of Declining Female Happiness. In addition to that, what you have seen is that, since the feminist movement started in the United States, there has been an unending emphasis on telling women that you can do everything, you must go out and achieve your full potential. And that's just great, right? Because after all, there have been, systemic discrimination against women, for a long time. But something very interesting happened. And that is, despite all these advances, as I said, this paper was the decline of the paradox of the decline of female happiness. That in addition to telling women all the time that they should do more, an unexpected event happened, and that is they completely forgot about the boys.
Actually, that's true.
What about the boys? Now, this problem went unattended and unnoticed for a very long time. But gradually, the evidence started accumulating. Hey, there is something wrong with the boys and the young men. They are not studying. They are dropping out of school. They are irresponsible. They are too much into technology. And finally, there was many books which were written about the crisis in masculinity in the West. And that crisis still continues as of today, right? So my question and my thought is that it's great that we emphasize, women's empowerment, but in the same time, if we neglect the mind and the psychology of young boys and men, it can have very grave consequences for society. So if we follow the Western model, and if we say, yes, female empowerment is there, but in the same time, if we neglect our young boys, and I'm saying that as a man, this is as a man, right? We will have to possibly pay any price, because boys and men need strong mentors, models, and the fact is that every vibrant society requires strong male leadership. And the empirical evidence is that women like confident men. They like men with ambition. So therefore, for instance, I could pose a question to you. To what extent are the crises in Punjab the result of, is it a masculinity crisis where they don't have, hold morals for themselves and they turn to violence and extreme philosophies, things like that. So basically what I'm trying to say is that what the result of feminism in the United States is, if it has been a declining female happiness and a neglect of young boys, then should we follow the same model in Indian society? And I don't think so. So my thought process, my advice, of course, people are free to reject what I say, is that it's great if you have daughters and encourage them to do everything, but do not forget your boys as a family and also as a society.
Because we never talk about it and we never think about it, because it's always been, it's great to have women empowerment, but some ways I think boys are losing the track as well. So as we were discussing that there is a huge difference between the two countries, but at the same time, because America has always been a superpower since forever, as we can remember. So everyone wants to follow the American lifestyle, the American thought process. And accordingly, even what I am seeing is the relationships between husband or wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, it is also changing. It has become quite superficial as well. We discussed about that nowadays, even parents, youngsters, they don't want to even have kids, or else we have become too individualistic. Maybe people are more and more people are getting divorced as well. So where is the young generation of India going wrong by following the Western culture, the fancy Western culture, and forgetting our own roots?
So again, having a look at what the data is coming out from the West, what they found is that in any society, its ultimate stability rests upon one factor, that is, what is the relationship between its young men and women? So if that fundamental unit of society breaks down, that society is in trouble. So what data is telling us is, there was a recent article by Nicholas Kristof in the New York Times, that young men and young women are gradually drifting apart. And there is a crisis of relationship between them in terms of how they view the world, and therefore there is a high possibility of decrease in the birth rates, decreased social cohesion, and there is a huge amount of increase in, for instance, in women taking psychiatric drugs, help them with depression. So the fundamental question is this, that if there is a Western model which is predicated on extreme individualism between men and women, which results in notable social indicators which are negative, then should we be following that one? Because if, let's say you're a doctor and you prescribe a medicine to me, and if the medicine does not have the intended impact, I should stop the medicine. So what I'm trying to say is that the social model which is coming out of America does not pass that test. It does not increase social, individual, societal happiness. And consequently, we simply cannot take a model which has been proven to be a failure. I mean, if we do that, then it is against common sense. So obviously, the next question is, what can we do about it? What can we Indians do about it? And I think that certainly, common sense should come into play. That in the West, for instance, they have mistaken the idea of equality for sameness. So men and women are equal, therefore they are the same. All the empirical evidence shows that men and women are different in their psychological outlook, in what their preferences are. There are hundreds of examples which you can give. So it's not that, men are better than women or women are better than men. The fact is that they are complementary. Because that is really a commonsensical thing. So what is amazing in this debate is the amount of wastage which they have gone to 30, 40, 50 years by first concentrating on young men and then concentrating on young women. Whereas the simple answer is that they are complementary. There needs to be compromises. Women need to be respected, and we should never ever do anything which is against the dignity of women. But at the same time, there is a role for men in society. And consequently, you have to go in there with the spirit of compromise, and with the spirit of knowing that, yes, we should respect our differences.
That's very true. So as you mentioned about the societal collapse in a way in those countries, whenever you go to countries like North America or even some places in Europe, so you find that though the entire area looks so clean, everything, but there's a kind of a sadness you feel. It is because everybody is kind of sad and not able to find that happiness, what they are striving for in all the methodologies, what they have been doing, and even after having those systems. Whereas in India, it looks like a chaos, but randomly you will find happy people, even if they don't have any means or they're not. So personally, I've always found that in India, we are in a habit of finding happiness in smaller things. Over there, the benchmarks are too high or in a certain way only, and everybody wants to behave or think in a certain way. That's why we lose ourselves and we try to become somebody else. Please correct me if I was...
Western societies are also family oriented. It's not that the family is gone out there. Mm-hmm. They also derive, pleasure and happiness, from the families. But what I'm saying is that the decline of the family in the United States has had real costs for that. And we should do everything in India to prevent that same decline from happening. So, of course, there are so many things which are, which need improvement in India. And I'm not saying that India is a perfect society, and I'm not trying to show that there is a sense of superiority which I have over Western society. No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that let us not make the same mistakes, because the mistakes are evident before us. And doing so would make no sense whatsoever. So what should be done? I think, making sure that our family structure, rests intact, making sure that the elements of support which we have around our women, remain. And I can tell you one thing, that one of the things which women in the West find very challenging, which is called the second shift, that they have to work in the office and they have to work at home, and there is no support structure. Whereas in India, middle-class families, and many of them have the luxury of having, women being supported. That is a huge advantage.
Mm.
That is a huge.
There's an emotional structure or emotional support in India, which you get from your extended family as well.
Exactly. And now they're saying, that there have been books written. For instance, there was a book called Bowling Alone, right? In which now they have found that loneliness is as lethal as smoking.
Loneliness is as lethal as smoking.
Loneliness is as lethal as smoking, because we are essentially social creatures. We thrive on social contact. We want to meet people. We want to see them face to face. Now, what happens when everything is, done alone? I'll give you an example. For instance, if you go to the supermarket out there, earlier you had, you were interacting with the clerk at the register. Now you've got self-checkout registers. Mm-hmm. In other words, the possibilities and avenues of direct physical contacts are becoming lesser and lesser, with the result that you're leading an atomized existence, with the result that it's having an impact on the loneliness. So that is what India should really try to see how to avoid it. And this is, I don't have a final solution. I'm just saying that this is what they have gone through, and we would be wise to look at themselves.
But with the AI booming up and a lot of technology and even like things like work from home, which has become very famous nowadays, don't you think we are directly, indirectly getting into that trap and reducing our social interactions in a way?
Well, I mean, again, sometimes, work from home has been advantageous, for people with young children. They've been able to stay at home. I think the jury is still out of exactly, what is the impact of that. And you really cannot predict the future because you have a whole lot of this, the rate of social change is very, very fast. What is AI going to do out there? How is technology going to impact that? All these are very, very big questions. But we should look at our strengths in India. Family is certainly a strength. We should try to preserve it. Respect our mothers, fathers, elders, love the children. And as I said, give equal opportunity to men and women, to boys and girls. And again, from the point of man, making sure that the psychology of young boys is not neglected.
You have played various roles throughout your career. And at the same time, what I find is that academically, you have always looked for bigger things. You're a Harvard, you studied from Harvard as well. You're a St. Stephen's graduate, and then you did law.
Yeah, correct.
Yes, and then you went to Harvard, and after that, you joined United Nations. I would love to know about your experiences being at the United Nations and how different it was from being a police officer.
Yeah.
So if you can share.
So the United Nations, I worked there for more than 20 years, and it was a really unique experience because the scale is international, right? So here, one of the things what happens is that you start to like diversity because your colleagues are from Africa, from Korea, from Papua New Guinea, from Australia. So you like to have people from all cultures around, and that's something which I really liked, On a personal level, you start liking, food from other cultures. You start liking sushi, you start liking Mexican food, in addition to, of course, loving your own food. But in the United Nations, I had a variety of positions. One of them was Chief of Peacekeeping Evaluation, in which I visited many countries. I was the Chief of Conduct and Discipline in a place called Haiti, right? Now, there I just wanted to tell you an experience that is, my job out there was that we have about 7,000-8,000 people in the peacekeeping mission. And one of the unfortunate things was that UN peacekeepers were sexually abusing young girls and minors there. And
UN peacekeepers.
Peacekeepers, this was a huge and public issue, and everybody knows about it. Yeah. So when I was there, my responsibility was to stop UN peacekeepers from sexually abusing the locals. And I still remember that it was 2007 when I first got the report from my officers that there was an allegation against a military contingent. I can say its name because it is public. It was from Sri Lanka. And they said that they were, indulging in sexual exploitation, abuse, and we mounted an investigation. And what we found was that there used to be these rotations of contingents. One contingent of 100 soldiers comes, then they stay for 6 months and they go away, and then another 100 comes. So they were having a network of young girls and women who they had contacted out there, and they used to pass on their telephone numbers from one contingent to another, sexually exploiting. So we did an investigation. Finally, I recommended to the special representative of the Secretary General that we should throw them out. And it was a difficult decision because the Sri Lankan contingent was supposed to be a very efficient contingent. But I said, the law is law, the rule is the rule, and they were all thrown out. So
you took that decision and...
I took that decision because, again, as I said, even the IPS have shown that there are two functions. One is that, if you're in the police, then you got to water criminals and protect people. Now, my role out there was to protect people from sexual exploitation, abuse, and it is still on the internet. In 2007, it was in Sri Lankans were thrown out. So that way, I think my UN career has been very exciting. And, I got to see how it works. I also got to see how India's prestige has risen dramatically in the United Nations ever since Mr. Modi came to power.
Since last 10 years.
Yes, since last year, because every September there is a meeting of heads of state, and the number of other heads of state who ask for one-to-one bilateral meetings with the Indian Prime Minister has skyrocketed. The number of references to India, the number of references to India's development in international organizations, the United Nations, the World Bank, the IMF, UNDP have skyrocketed. So this is something which we should be proud of, as a country, because this is not about politics. This is about the international sphere, where we Indians should leave our politics behind and see what is happening in the UN. And I think India is playing a very positive role there.
So globally, India is becoming a superpower, maybe?
No, I won't say superpower. I'll say that it is rising fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that its respect is rising. We are trying for a place in the Security Council, which has still not happened. And there are huge number of obstacles to that, simply because of the way the United Nations Charter is written. But
Like China has a role to play in that?
certainly, because there is the issue of the double veto, that is, it can be changed only if the 5 permanent members of the Security Council agree, which is not going to happen. If that doesn't happen, then the United Nations is frozen forever. And the question is, to what extent will it remain relevant in the future?
Okay.
So we have been, for instance, all our permanent representatives in the United Nations have been consistently raising the issue of India's representation in the Security Council.
I think if that happens, a lot of things will change for India.
Yes, but I'm not holding my breath on that.
So again, as we are discussing about your experiences being in the UN, and as you mentioned about your experiences, and there must be n number of experiences. And when we look at you right now, you have a calm composure. You've done so many things. You're also a painter. You paint so beautifully. I just saw your paintings. Hanumanji carrying Sanjeevani to Statue of Liberty. How did that idea came to your mind?
So, it's just an amateur painter. It's just paint to, it's a very relaxing thing. So, over the years, for the past 20, 30 years, I've done, a few paintings. And those are on the theme of the dignity of the common man in the war. That is, you see people on the streets and you say, wow, they're just an ordinary person going about a job, and there is a dignity in that. There is something to be admired in that, even though they are poor, So I painted those. I'm send some of them to you, and if you want to show them to your,
Yes, I would love to show those. Those are actually beautiful. I'm not just saying because we are sitting here together, but as a viewer, a general viewer, if you haven't told that you've made as a passion or as a hobby, I would have felt that this has been painted by a professional.
Right. Thank you.
And the best thing is the thought process, like how you have painted and how you have portrayed the real India in it.
Yeah.
So that's the most beautiful part of it.
Yeah. So as I said, that I like looking at the common man or the common woman, as R.K. Lakshman said it, and you look at their features, you see how much of resilience which they have in them, how much of beauty and dignity which there is. So what I did was I took pictures. I saw, for instance, I was in the ring road, and I saw this truck which was filled with cement bags, and there were 4 dusty laborers sitting on that, and they probably worked in Bihar or somewhere of the sort. So I just took a picture and painted that. We had gone to Vaishno Devi, and on the foot of Vaishno Devi there were 4 porters, Muslim porters, who carry luggage all the way up to Vaishno Devi. So I took a picture and painted that. In Babarnath Temple in Mumbai, there was a person getting his shave from a guy, so I painted that.
Oh, so you randomly take pictures and then
I just took pictures. I like photography also, so I just painted them. Then I said, okay, now what do I do now? And I said, okay, after retirement, I said, America is in trouble. But what can I as an Indian do to help? And as I said, what would our popular gods do? Because Indian gods are very, colorful characters. So I thought that, I will paint a whole series of, our gods help America. And the first one which I've done is, Hanumanji is coming with his Sanjeevani booty to the Statue of Liberty painted on a tusk to show that I'm there to help you. Your country is not declining. We are there for you. So it is painted with that idea.
So when you say that America is in trouble, so it's the thought process is from the point of the society, or okay?
From the point of the society, from the point of the politics, from the point of your social indicators, it is a country which is seriously in trouble.
Okay, so it's not the same America which it was about 20 years ago when everybody wanted to be in America and have that American dream, live that American dream.
No, it's not that the American dream has died out. It always has opportunities for bright Indians. It is still a country of opportunity. It's a fantastic country. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is that there are certain social indicators which are troubling. The level of divisiveness, on politics, for instance, which exists out there, and the social problems which you talked about, the drug abuse which you talked about. So that is an entirely different subject by itself. But again, as I said, to come back to the painting, the idea was, what can I as an artist do with right? And
and you're also a screenplay writer. So that was a surprise for me that an IPS officer who served in the UN and has written screenplays and those screenplays have won awards.
Yeah, I mean, I said that let's try an absolutely new form of art. And it's a very, very difficult thing to do, to write a screenplay. And I had to read books in, how to write a screenplay. And I found out they said, conflict is the heart for script. That is, people have to be in tension all the time. They have to be guessed. And it's very difficult.
And you have not taken any formal training for that?
Well, if I've not taken any formal training, so I just, read books and things like that. So I wrote up on this one. I've written one called The Fusion Commission, which is a screenplay. It's not been sold anywhere, but it did win awards in Vancouver, in Dubai. And that is a courtroom drama in which a female lawyer who's undergoing a divorce, she sues her ex-husband over the custody of a child, and she says that because men have been exploiting women forever, I demand that the government fuse men and women into one gender so that their discrimination ends. And the President of the United States has to take a decision on whether the humanity continues with men and women or is fused into one race. So what happens in the end is you find out if you read it.
And it was just out of your imagination.
It just totally out of my imagination, yeah.
That's amazing. And one you wrote one for Bollywood as well.
Oh yeah, that one actually is a completely different genre. It is called Tota Bolta. The speaking parrot, and this is about a young, ambitious, illiterate car mechanic who goes to Mumbai, and he wants to get married to the richest, sexiest Bollywood heroine. But he doesn't have the skills to woo her. So what he decides is to get a love contractor who is a heroine, and she's got a talking parrot. So she has to coach him how to become sophisticated enough to woo this heroine. But the problem is that the bad guy in the underworld is also going after the same one. So it's a story about that. The climax is in Jim Corbett National Park.
The climax is in
Jim Corbett National Park.
So I'm guessing some shooting happening.
Yeah, it's something like that. Well, I'll give it to you when you can read it and tell you what.
That's actually perfect. So when we talk about somebody's life or somebody's success, because this podcast was created to inspire people and give them, share with them the right knowledge, the right thought processes, and positive thought processes as well. So you have an amazing journey, and whatever you're today, whatever your thought process is today, including your fitness, you do push-ups every day, you do 100 sit-ups every day, I suppose, and is because of an accumulation of the journey. But whereas the youth today, what I find is they want a lot of things very fast. when I meet, the patience has gone a little down. So, can you, though we are going to get your Inspire Me mantra as well, but can you just give a message to everyone who wants to achieve something in life? What kind of mindset should they keep? And why the passion is also reducing for doing things? And how can they keep the passion ignited for whatever they are doing?
So the first thing which I'll say is that, the advice which I give is of very limited use because everybody learns in their life with their own mistakes. So therefore, I cannot say when you do this and therefore you're going to succeed. I can't say that. But I'll just share some of the insights which I have and that may make sense to people and they may not make sense to people. I think that, really, there are many factors in success, but one of the things is implementation is critical. That is, if you have an idea, how does it move from your brain to reality? Do you want to write a book? So there's a physical process involved. You want to run a marathon? There's a physical process involved. I remember when I ran the marathon in New York in 2005, you had to build it up so that you make sure that you have the requisite number of the fitness to run 42 kilometers, So implementation is everything. And, once you say, okay, I'm going to start, then the question is, have you finished or not? Because if you're not finished, that's really that. And the basic skill of that, I think, is discipline. That is, unless you have control over yourself. I don't think for most people, there's any shortcut to success. You'll have to slog it out. You'll have to work hard. For most people, there's no magic bullet. So the people at the top, they just don't get there. It's a journey.
Yes. If the talent doesn't work hard, then hard work beats talent. And
it does. It's just an analysis. Implementation is everything.
That's amazing. That's actually, I'll be very honest, through most of the podcasts which we do, this is the crux which you've told, that implementation, and you have to be consistent, and it's not glamorous. You have to keep on doing.
Yeah.
It has to be very, very consistent.
Yeah.
If we talk about consistency, I'm so happy to see that you maintain such a great physique. You have zero tummy. So you work out every day. This will be an inspiring thing for everyone as well. Please share your daily workout routine.
Well, actually, I think you're going to be a kind of a boring person in order to maintain that, because I don't drink because I think life is high enough without. So my high is that really you feel much happier after you exercise, and I'm one of those people who does not have to push himself to exercise. It's the other way around. That is that I have to. It's very difficult for me not to over exercise because you feel much better. So I never say to myself, oh, can I go to the gym or no? It is like, can I really avoid going to the gym? The answer is no. You'd have to go because you're going to feel better. So what I do is in nature, here I am in beautiful Chandigarh. I go for a 1 hour walk in Leisure Valley, and in that, I try to do 50 push-ups every day. So you stop after you wander 20 minutes, you do 50 push-ups, then you go another 20 minutes, you do another 20 push-ups, come home and you do 10 push-ups, right? So then you do, some weights, because it's very important, especially for men, you're going to be losing your muscle mass, and that it keeps you happy. Your endorphins come up, and after that, you have a bath and you meditate and you feel much happier because your body is feeling happier with the exercise. So now I've come to believe that the holistically, what is in good health is 1, there's going to be aerobics, 2, there's going to be weight training, 3 is going to be flexibility, and then balance, and finally meditation. So if you combine all these things, then you'll be able to look after your body, So your body is sacred to you, don't overeat, eat light. There's plenty of good nutritional advice in India. We have lovely food in India, but just work out for yourself because your brain's going to be better after you work.
So as we are discussing about holistic health, because this is a word which comes up quite a lot in a lot of discussions. But as you've summed up, all these 5 factors together brings up holistic health. Meditation is an important part. So I would love to know about your insights about meditation.
So I'll confess that I don't meditate as regularly as I should. Yeah. But here's what I do, and it was just by trial and error. And, I was reading Man's Eternal Quest by, Swami Paramahansa Yogananda. And he says that the prayer is the demand of the soul. And the prayer is the demand of the soul. And when he's talking about meditation, and I was also reading Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and when he's talking about how to keep your mind calm, but one of the things, one of the shlokas is Vishoka Dvat Jyotishmati. In other words, you concentrate on the ever blissful light within. That's what he says. Okay, so then I said, that's great, let me try it out. And then I was just scrolling through the internet one day, and since I like astronomy, I came across the NASA website. Now, the NASA website has an astronomical picture of the day in which they're going to post beautiful pictures of distant galaxies and stars and these constellations which are just shining for some, unimaginable reason. So what I did was I said, well, if there's a light within, why don't I look at one of these NASA photographs, which are these lovely spiral galaxies, and try to absorb that within and say that, when I'm meditating, I say, okay, here's what I see, this light within, and you are going towards that light. And you're going towards that light. And then you're rushing towards that light. And then you're asking the light, please accept me, please guide me. And there is a sense of, boundless joy, which I cannot describe, which comes when you try this. So this is just my subjective experience. I don't know whether it's going to work for other people or not, but I just saw it, share it with you.
How does meditation changes one's perspective towards life in general? Because even I meditate, so I understand what you're saying. And I feel that it should be a part of the curriculum. In fact, with Vivek Atre sir, we discussed in his episode as well, that it should be part of the curriculum as well. And that what we are, because when we die, so we are the same body, but it doesn't feel the heat. But when you're alive, there's something driving this body, right? So that's what we are, or maybe the light or the soul. So not much of work is done for that thing.
Yeah.
So how would you explain or suggest that, how does meditation help people live better and more fulfilled?
Yeah. So, you should have a look at, Indian philosophy, that, they talk about peace, shanti, all the time, So that is really the ultimate thing.
I think everybody's running for that.
Please see that. And from a psychological point of view, it's a very deep philosophy, because we don't talk, the West talks about happiness, right? They measure happiness. But this doesn't talk about happiness. This talks about peace. And that means accepting the world as it is. It's a very tough thing. And if you read, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, essentially what they are saying is that it is all caused by the disturbances in the mind. So the idea of meditation is to still your mind so that you can see a reality which is not visible in your normal agitated state. And for that, it requires you to close yourself and to make sure that your senses are not, overactive, and your mind is focused on one thing. And of course, there is a huge amount of studies which we've done about that. People have made millions, on this. For instance, there was a book written by Richard Pinkin called The Relaxation Response. Now, he has essentially taken Indian yogic ideas and put them through scientific tests and say, hey, they really work, right? So our philosophy was there much before everyone else, And in that sense, it's again a question of practice and implementation, as I said. Because if you don't implement it, again, it doesn't mean that all your problems will be solved. It doesn't mean you're not going to have challenges. It doesn't mean that there cannot be misfortune. It doesn't mean anything of the sort. But it can help you, I think, to lead a better, more fulfilling, more peaceful, internal life. And ultimately, life is an absolute mystery. Who knows, what's going to happen? Where did we come from? Where did we go? These questions are still, absolutely unanswered,
Very perfectly answered, I would say. As the theme of this show is inspire me, your journey is inspiring, your aura is inspiring. You are an inspiring personality. And one of the most inspiring things, what I want to share as well, that you have still kept the Indian passport.
Yeah.
So you've lived outside of India since, I think, almost 27 years now.
Since 1997. Since even have my Indian passport long time ago.
And you
still attached to my blue passport, which is Bharat,
And your voter card is from Chandigarh.
Correct.
You have a house in Chandigarh.
Correct.
So, and you have specially come to India to vote.
Correct.
So this is again a very inspiring thing, not only for the people who are living here, but even for people who are living in other countries as well, that how passionate you are about India. So your inspire me mantra for everyone who are living in India and who wants to do something for India, and your viewpoint in a way that what is the best way to make India the greatest nation of the world? Like what inputs everybody can put in, or what?
So, I think that India is in the right track. I have a lot of confidence in our youth. That there is an openness, there is an excitement, there is a can-do attitude which is there in the Indian youth, and our young boys and girls. And that is just fantastic. If you look at, for instance, the survey of the Indian youth, which has been done by Pew Research, we are a young country, and although I have been in the services, I would not advise people to go for bureaucracy. I mean, they should go for generating jobs, for wealth, follow their passions, do things together, come up with new ideas. And as India is, growing in terms of, financial powers and disposable income, you find, for instance, that we are going back to more arts, more literature, book festivals. All that is a testament to the Indian spirit. This podcast, for instance, is a testament to the Indian spirit. And you're trying to inspire people. So, I have a lot of faith in the youth of this country. Let's give them all the support they have. They are going to make their own mistakes. And my advice may be absolutely useless for them, but that doesn't matter. I have trust.
Very well said. And it's been an honor, ultimate honor. And we are lucky that you are here. And, we brought you to our studio and we did this podcast. And I personally am inspired multiple times. And I'm sure that everybody who is watching or listening to this episode has got to know a lot of things about your journey, and also the notion about an IPS officer must have changed in a good way as well, in a better way as well.
Well, I want to thank you for inviting me to this podcast, and I wish all your viewers, especially the young ones, all the best for their trajectory in life.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.